All right, question number one. What's the best way, the strategies and methods to really get to know myself and like myself? All right, so it's kind of a couple of questions. The first one, getting to know yourself, and the second one, liking yourself. But getting to know yourself is one of the strategies towards liking yourself. Basically, it's very hard to hate something you fully understand. So, fully understanding yourself will lead to compassion, and compassion leads to love. So if you really want to love yourself, it does help to fully understand. And you know you understand something when you no longer have any resentment towards it, blame, you have nothing but empathy. Okay, so you'll never hate someone you have full empathy for. So the best way, strategies, methods. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head here. First and foremost, I think the most helpful thing I've ever looked into in my own life is understanding that my behavior is the manifestation of my inner world. So my beliefs and everything that controls my beliefs, everything that happens in my subconscious will show itself in my behavior. My thoughts and feelings may lie to me. Okay, so especially my thoughts, all these narratives about who I am in my head will often be quite a contradictory story to who I actually am in terms of behavior. Um, so let's say, you listen to anybody talk about who they are, and you'll see a big difference between what they say and what they do. The kind of person says, I'm a really honest person. They often lie. The kind of person says, I'm really kind. You'll see them be cruel. The person says, I'm really reliable. It's only on the things they care about, and so on. You'll see that people often contradict their claims about themselves with seemingly no awareness that they're doing so. It's not like they're bragging or lying. They actually believe what they're saying, but they can't observe their own behavior the way an outsider can. If you can learn to observe your own behavior detachedly, without judgment, just like you're a psychologist unbiasedly reviewing a case, you're just watching someone behave to try and figure out what's going on with them, you'll see some shocking truths revealed. The really difficult part is doing this without judging yourself and doing it accurately. So what people tend to do is they have a very biased memory, skewed perspective of their own behavior. So people will often say things to me like, "Oh, I get rejected all the time." But if we look at their behavior, they don't actually even give themselves a chance to be rejected. They don't ask anyone out on a date. They don't ask for a promotion at work. They're rejected maybe actually once a year. But they feel like they're being rejected all the time. Why? Because in their head, they're constantly rejecting themselves. But out in the real world, they're not really getting that much negative feedback. So this is the kind of thing that people do all the time. They have this imaginary fantasy world, and then they have the real world that they interact with real behavior, and they confuse the two. And the more somebody fantasizes, more time someone spends in their head thinking about who they are, the more confused they are about what really happened. And this is where journaling is probably the main tool, is to accurately measure what you did, why you did it, and what result it got. If, for example, you think you're someone who gets rejected all the time, well, how many times did you ask for something and hear an actual no this week? For many of you, the answer will be none. That didn't happen at all. For some of you, it might be once. But for you to actually be able to say, I get rejected a lot, it would need to be dozens of times. And they'd all need to be no's, right? That would be accurate. I quite often tell myself that I don't get enough sleep, right? Because my daughter's always struggled with sleeping since she was born. But then how am I able to do this session right now? How am I able to think clearly, run a business, take care of my health, do all the things that need to be done if I'm not getting enough sleep? If I wasn't getting enough sleep, we should see quite catastrophic manifestation of that in my life. Crashing my car, losing my job, whatever. Like we should see somebody who's clearly sleep deprived. But no, I'm just a bit tired while I do stuff. That's the truth. So I'm doing all this stuff. It's like people who consider themselves to be a loser. So this is the kind of self-measurement that often leads to people hating themselves. They think of themselves as a loser. Done a whole podcast on the loser identity. And if you're one of those people listening to me right now, then however old you are, that's how many years you've survived. Day after day after day. The universe has been trying to kill you the whole time, right? Second law of thermodynamics, entropy. The universe is trying to destroy you. It will eventually. And it hasn't yet. So what have you lost exactly? If you're a loser, it means you've lost something. Well, what have you lost? You haven't lost your life, have you? And it's, oh, I was married and I lost my partner. Yeah, but before her, you never had her. So how do you lose something you don't need? It doesn't make sense. If you actually needed that partner, you'd be dead without her or severely wounded or injured or whatever, both before and after the relationship. It's more like putting on a hat. You put on a hat and take it off. Did you lose the hat? Well, actually, you were fine without the hat before you put it on. So what did you really lose? Right? I'm not saying that there's no objectives thing as loss. Your parents dying, having your hand cut off. There are things that you've had your whole life that are taken away and they never come back. Sure. But did you lose them or did they just go? Right? Like if someone you love leaves you, did you throw them away or did they walk away? In which case, you didn't lose them, they left. It's different. The point being is, you tell yourself you're a loser, and yet, if you were to observe your behavior, you do nearly everything to a good enough level. You must do because you're alive, listening to me right now, right? You might look down your stomach, oh, I don't have abs. Yeah, but you're alive, so you're eating enough food, you're moving enough not to die. I'm not saying you're in prime health or anything, but the idea that you're a total loser, well, maybe once you end up in the coffin, then you've lost everything. So when we're talking about trying to get to know yourself, it's about letting go of the stories you tell yourself about who you are and really, in a cold-blooded way, just observing your patterns of behavior. Because it goes the other way. The same person who calls himself a loser also thinks of themselves as a good person. They think they're unfairly treated, that they're trying to be good. And you observe their behavior and you're like, well, where's the value that you're contributing? Exactly. You know, I get this quite often. It's one of the ways that I deal with hateful comments and stuff that I get on YouTube is every time somebody comments something like whatever, they're implying that I'm not valuable, they're saying something mean. I go to their channel and every time there's no videos. They're not contributing anything, at least not on YouTube. So they're shitting on me for trying to contribute. And I've had thousands of videos. That's measurable. I've done thousands of hours of content, attempts to contribute, and they've done none, at least according to the evidence I can see. So who's really trying to contribute here? I'm not saying that I am valuable, but trying to, whereas this person's put out nothing. So this person's telling themselves that they're more valuable than me, but evidence-wise, I've contributed more than they have. So what are you actually doing? And then you write the story. This is how I figured out my whole nice guy syndrome thing. I told myself I was a nice guy, so on and so forth. Then I measured my behavior. I'm like, fuck, I'm pretty manipulative. I'm constantly lying. I'm constantly managing other people's emotions. I'm constantly presenting an image I want them to see as opposed to what I really am. Like, how's that good? How's that nice? It's quite jarring, the difference between what I told myself I am and what I actually did. So it goes both ways. You'll tell yourself you're much more of a hero and that you're much more important and you're much more special than you actually are, according to your behavior. And you also tell yourself you're much worse and you're much less valuable and you're much more of a waste of a person than you actually are, right? And then, to transition to how do I get my like myself is it's really, well, how do I change the patterns of behavior that I don't like seeing into patterns of behavior I would like to see? It's really quite a simple equation in the end. Is he like, if I was to observe myself, what do I need to see to be proud of what I'm seeing? To admire it, respect it, to be like, I like that guy. As one person once said to me, become the guy that you hope your daughter brings home one day. And that gave me a lot of thinking. Like I sat down and thought, well, who would that guy be? Because I don't want him to be a people pleaser. I don't want my daughter to go for that, right? And I don't want him to be all flashy and caring about money and all sorts of stuff like that. There's all these things I didn't want. I'm like, well, what do I want? What would make me feel relief? Like, oh my God, she found a good one. And I had to unpack it, and he's not just a nice guy. He's generous and genuine and helpful, but he's got a spine. He'll also protect her. He'll protect himself. He'll be a good father. There's all these things, and I thought, well, if I look at my patterns of behavior, not what I tell myself I am, but what I actually did today and yesterday and last week and last year, and what I frequently do on an average day, how does that compare to that guy? And I found that I was, on point in some areas, but woefully short in other areas. And all I have to do to like myself is to bring those images together. That's what I call the authenticity gap, to make sure your behavior lines up with who you wished you were. It really is that simple, but the difficult part is being confused by the story in your head about who you are. A lot of people will measure what they didn't do. So, I've used this example before, but you go to the gym, you say, I'm going to do 10 push-ups today, and you only do seven, and your measurement is -3. I did -3 push-ups because I did three less than the goal. But the truth is, you did seven push-ups and you're maintaining your health. So if you did seven push-ups and you're maintaining your health, then you're on point with your values. You're a person who takes care of his health. That's something you want to be, right? So that's the gist, all right? If you want to get to know yourself, focus on measuring your behavior as accurately and as objectively as possible. Just what you did, not what you didn't do, not what you could have done or should have done, just what did you do, right? And measure it from zero up. So you don't be like, oh, I did less push-ups than yesterday. No, so I did seven more push-ups than zero, right? You don't compare to your previous self's performance because we don't know why that performance happened. Maybe you're feeling better that day. Maybe you're feeling worse. Maybe you're younger. Well, you definitely were younger. You don't compare to that. You just compare to zero. Okay. So that was the first question.